Hello, thank you for celebrating Preservation Month and learning why preservation is good for the neighborhood. My name is Margaret Lann. As a member of the Cleveland Heights Landmark Commission and the Preservation Services Manager at the Cleveland Restoration Society, I would like to welcome you to today's presentation. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to tell you about the Cleveland Restoration Society, known as CRS. Founded in 1972, CRS is the largest historic preservation nonprofit organization in Ohio. We have a staff of 12 professionals and are headquartered in the historic Sarah Benedict House on Prospect Avenue in the Midtown neighborhood. Our programs are available to residents of Cuyahoga County and beyond to neighboring counties across Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland Restoration Society uses the powerful tool of historic preservation to revitalize our diverse communities, strengthen the regional economy, and enhance the quality of life in Northeast Ohio. Our program areas include advocating for the protection of our historic landmarks, educating the community about preservation, identifying and designating historic places, assisting sacred landmarks, saving endangered buildings from demolition, investing in the reuse of small-scale commercial buildings, and assisting homeowners of older homes through free advice, technical assistance, and low-interest loans. Now that you have heard a little bit about CRS, let's learn why preservation is good for the neighborhood. In order to begin, we need to take a brief look at what preservation tools we have that benefit our neighborhoods today. Today, we have two types of historic designation: the National Register of Historic Places and state and local designations. Designation on the National Register of Historic Places is an honorific title that is through the National Park Service. There is no protection against private demolition or alteration to the building. However, should federal funds be used for demolition or alteration, then it will trigger a government review process. Listing on the National Register can make properties eligible to receive historic tax credits as part of a renovation if they result in income-producing projects. Finally, designation in the National Register does not automatically make properties locally designated. Likewise, local designations do not automatically list properties in the National Register. These designations are established through local ordinances and protected by law. Process and procedure depend upon the regulations established by each municipality, but most often they involve some kind of design review board to approve proposed changes to the exterior of a building. Usually these changes consist of major construction projects. Small changes to hardware or even paint color are not often reviewed. Cleveland Heights recently enacted legislation to establish local historic districts. The review process for buildings in these districts would be much the same as those items that require review by the city's Architectural Board of Review and include projects such as replacement windows, changes to siding and roof material, or the rebuilding of front porches. The Federal Historic Preservation Tax Credit has been around since the mid-1970s and has leveraged millions of dollars of reinvestment in historic buildings. We are fortunate in Ohio that we also have a state credit that can be used in tandem with the federal credit. Not every state has this tool. Unlike the federal credit, the state credit is competitive and not all applicants are awarded. To be eligible for both credits, the property needs to be listed in the National Register or a contributing structure to a National Register district, and it would meet strict preservation guidelines as it undergoes rehabilitation. In the end, the project needs to be income producing. Pictured here is the College Club, a former single-family home that was used as a club for many years and is now being renovated into apartments. This is the first tax credit project in Cleveland Heights and it was able to obtain both state and federal credits. Now that we have a better understanding of preservation tools and incentives, let's take a deep dive into why preservation is good for your neighborhood. Historic preservation is good for cities. No, not just good. Historic preservation is great for cities. The reason preservation is great for cities are multiple: aesthetic, symbolic, cultural, social, educational, economic, and others. Cleveland Restoration Society agrees. In fact, CRS has presented on the topic of why preservation is good for neighborhoods for decades. This year, a new report by Place Economics has been released that has allowed us to update this presentation with even more accurate data. And who doesn't love good data? Place Economics, founded by famed economist Donovan Ripkema, is an internationally known company that analyzes the economics of old buildings in cities and towns of all sizes. Just published this year, there's a new report titled 24 Reasons Historic Preservation is Good for Your Community. You can download it for free and read all of their findings. For this presentation, we are going to focus on the following 6 areas: jobs, environmental responsibility, smart growth, property values, foreclosure patterns, neighborhood stability, and community engagement. Historic rehabilitation means jobs, generally well-paid jobs. Rehabilitation tends to be more labor-intensive than new construction, so work restoring historic buildings has a greater job-creating impact per dollar spent than new construction. New buildings rely on 50% labor and 50% materials. Rehabilitation of an older structure relies on roughly 60 to 70% labor. According to the report, Ohio, Creating Jobs, Building Communities, Preserving Heritage, published in 2013 by the National Trust for Historic Preservation and Heritage Ohio, between 2001 and 2012, over 12,000 construction jobs were created as a result of a project that used the federal historic tax credits. An additional 17,000 permanent jobs resulted in those buildings once they were put back into commercial use. And keep in mind, this is just an analysis of the federal tax credit. We should also take into account projects that use just the state tax credit, or no tax credit at all, like residential renovation. Other studies show residential rehabilitation creates 50% more jobs than new construction. Old buildings are inherently more energy efficient than new construction. At the time many of these buildings were constructed, they were designed to make the best use of light, heat, and energy before we had artificial systems, like air conditioning, that would do that for the building. As a result, when updated with new systems, these buildings now use less energy. An office tower built since 1980 uses 33% more energy per square foot than one built a century ago. A multifamily property built since 1980 uses 13% more energy per square foot than an apartment building built prior to 1920. All buildings contained embodied energy. That is the energy used to process materials required to construct the building. Think about how construction material needs to be extracted, produced, transported to sites, and labor to then install the materials. Calculations show that buildings over 50 years old have an average of 50 years embodied energy. That means even if you construct a new LEED certified, highly energy efficient building, it would take a minimum of 10 years and as many as 80 years to recoup the negative climate change impacts of construction before you begin to realize any energy savings from the new building. Preservationists love to say the greenest building is the one that is already built. When you take into account that the average sized historic house that was retained rather than raised reduces the impact on the landfill by 62.5 tons, plus makes use of its embodied energy, you can see why we really do believe that preservation is green. Smart growth is a sustainable development movement in the United States. The Smart Growth Network is made up of a long list of government, business, and civic organizations that include the Environmental Protection Agency, the American Planning Association, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. This coalition produced a set of 10 principles to protect our health and the natural environment, and to make communities safe, more attractive, economically stronger, and socially diverse. The 10 principles of smart growth encourage projects that mix land use, take advantage of compact building design, create a range of housing opportunities and choices, create walkable neighborhoods, foster distinctive, attractive communities with a strong sense of place, preserve open space, farmland, natural beauty, and critical environmental areas, strengthen and direct development toward existing communities, provide a variety of transportation choices, make development decisions that are predictable, fair, and cost-effective, and encourage community and stakeholder collaboration in development decisions. Historic neighborhoods are the living embodiment of all 10 smart growth principles. Having historic neighborhoods in your community advances this sustainable development agenda. According to Place Economics, there is no area of preservation economic analysis that has been done more often than measuring the impact of local historic districts on property values. Regardless of the researcher, the methodology, or the location of the study, the results of these analyses have been remarkably consistent. In nearly every instance, properties in local historic districts have greater values of appreciation than properties elsewhere in the same city. Pictured here are the results of a property value study conducted 3 different ways in the city of Saratoga Springs. Study number 1 looks at property values over time. Study number 2 evaluates properties by architectural style, with the results for Victorian homes shown here. And study number 3 takes a look at properties based on their condition. No matter how these studies chose to measure impact, all of them found that homes in historic districts consistently held a greater rate of appreciation than those outside of the district. Here in Cleveland, a professor at Cleveland State University conducted a study of all the homes that participated in the Society's Heritage Home Loan Program. Not all of these homes were in historic districts, but they were all at least 50 years old. This study found that homes that went through the program had a disproportionate increase in value as compared to other homes in the same community. Even more impressive, homes that were within 1/10 of a mile of the participating home also had an increase in value. Investing in older and historic homes has a positive effect on the house and boosts the property value of the surrounding neighborhood. Similar to property values, foreclosure patterns are better in historic districts. In this case, Place Economics reported a 55% decrease in foreclosures in historic districts in the Miami-Dade County in Florida, a particularly hard-hit area of the country during the recession. And data out of Pittsburgh showed that historic districts there fared better than the rest of the city, with local historic districts being the most stable. The study points out that it isn't that people who live in historic districts never get fired or divorced or run their credit card bills up too high. Rather, there is a latent demand for homes in those neighborhoods, even in market downturns. As a result, homeowners who find themselves in financial difficulties often find buyers for their homes before they reach the point of foreclosure. Post-recession, the Cleveland Restoration Society provided data to the Economic Department at CSU for a second study of the Heritage Home Program. This time, the study focused on foreclosure rates as opposed to property values. The findings of this study showed that homes that had been a part of the Heritage Home Loan Program had 1/10 the foreclosure rate of other homes across Cuyahoga County. Homeowners who invest in their homes tend to stay in them longer. This helps create neighborhood stability and brings us to our next point. Historic districts and neighborhoods play a big role in stability and community engagement. A recent home renovation story out of the Forest Hill neighborhood demonstrates this point. This lovely mid-century modern ranch on Forest Hill Boulevard was not always so good looking. Before renovation, the property had been vacant for over a decade. The property was highly distressed. An original slate roof was in such disrepair that you could see through to the sky. Water damage caused extensive failure of ceiling plaster, walls, and flooring, and to call the basement damp would be an understatement. Upon learning that this 1953 home was slated for demolition, Jermaine and Kesha Owens decided to engage residents and members of the local historic district's homeowners association. The couple was interviewed by Freshwater Cleveland. When asked why they chose to tackle this home restoration, the Owenses responded, "We wanted to maintain the historic value of the neighborhood," says Kesha, who says if the house was in any other neighborhood, they would have walked away. If that's what you're sitting next door to, you don't have the incentive to keep up your house. We did our part contributing to the community. After working with the Land Bank and the City of Cleveland Heights to acquire the property, the Owens partnered with the Heritage Home Program to finance many of the home's necessary improvements. An extensive interior rehabilitation included new HVAC, plumbing, electrical, hardwood floor repair and refinishing, renovations to the kitchen, bathroom, and basement. Exterior projects included a complete restoration of the original slate roof, with Jermaine himself could be found on the roof alongside the contractors with a curious and precise eye, and rebuilding the stone wall leading up to the front entrance. In total, the Owens worked with over 20 specialty contractors to complete the job and pitched in for some DIY projects as the property was transferred. Upon completion of the project, the home sold at the high end of the real estate market. With that success under their belts, Jermaine and Kesha have decided to tackle another project just down Forest Hill Boulevard, less than a block away. Stories like this one demonstrate the passion people have for historic neighborhoods and the market value of older homes when they are rehabilitated. Now that we have taken a close look at some of the economics behind preservation, what about the social, emotional, and aesthetic benefits to the community? In the City of Cleveland Heights, there are 53 local landmarks, 10 structures listed individually in the National Register of Historic Places, and 12 National Register Historic Districts. Outside of 5 major cities of Ohio in Akron, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, and Toledo, Cleveland Heights has the largest number of historic districts than any other community in the state. Take a moment to consider the vibrancy that these places bring to our city, the stories they tell, and the void that may be created if they were gone. Landmarking historic buildings can educate the community about important parts of its history. Pictured here is the Garfield Monument at Lakeview Cemetery, a structure of national importance. And to the right is the Pryor House, the oldest structure in Cleveland Heights. Built around 1825 as a simple cabin, this home has evolved over the years and has been restored to its late 19th century appearance. Historic designation can also acknowledge superb design, craftsmanship, and architectural integrity. One of the reasons Cleveland Heights has so many National Register listed districts is that it has an unusually large number of intact homes that are of high architectural quality in a wide range of styles. In addition to recognizing famous architects or beautiful design, such as the Park Synagogue designed by world-renowned Eric Mendelsohn, historic designation can acknowledge patterns of people through history over time, as in the oldest church in Cleveland Heights, pictured on the bottom right, that has been home to many different congregations over the years. Designation can be an important tool in the telling of lesser-known stories, like that of a Sears catalog home pictured in the upper right, or highlight mid-century architecture that is often undervalued. Preservation contributes to a unique sense of place. Distinctive neighborhoods can help us appreciate cultural diversity. Places that represent certain people, accomplishments, a different way of life are honored when they are simply preserved, restored, and maintained for generations. A simple way of putting it is old buildings matter because they tell our stories. Historic designation helps identify and retain our individual and collective memory. These places are tied with memories. They are also our visual histories where we have spent our lives and our energy and our love. They also serve to connect us all in a way. They're tangible evidence of our past and our current. They tell our collective stories and create a sort of cohesion with other people who also share these spaces. This is why preservation is good for the neighborhood. Let's take a few minutes to talk about how you can be part of preservation in your neighborhood. You can begin by researching the history of your own home. Questions to ask are, how much do you know about your home's history? Do you know what was there before your house was constructed? Do you know when it was built? Who built it? What was their job? Do you know who has lived where you live now? What makes your house distinctive in your community, or what makes it the right fit with its neighbors? The City of Cleveland Heights Planning Department can also help answer some of these home questions. You can learn more through the city website link that's posted here. Take a walk around your neighborhood and try to answer these questions. What other types of buildings are on your block? How does your house relate to the street? How does your house compare to the other homes on the block or nearby? Would your neighborhood benefit from becoming a locally designated landmark? If you think that your neighborhood would benefit from local designation to protect its historic architecture and realize all the benefits of preservation, contact the Cleveland Heights Planning Department and the Landmark Commission to learn more. Finally, if you decide you want to improve your older or historic home, contact the Heritage Home Program at the Cleveland Restoration Society. The Heritage Home Program can provide free technical advice and assistance to any owner of an older home in Cleveland Heights or any of its 40+ participating communities. The most popular form of technical assistance is an in-person site visit to the home. There are also options for virtual site visits over video and phone. The Heritage Home Program construction specialist can answer questions about your home, the proposed repair or renovation projects you would like to do, or review bids you may have already gotten from contractors. The program staff can also connect you with contractors to bid the work, locate specialty materials, and provide insight as to how to make your home energy efficient without compromising its historic features. The second part of the program is a low-interest loan for home improvement projects. Current rates are as low as 1.99%. Visit the Heritage Home Program website to learn more, or to schedule a virtual site visit and access additional program information. That's our presentation today. Please visit our website at www.clevelandrestoration.org or contact me directly with questions. Thank you for listening and learning about why preservation is good for your neighborhood.